Outside of Japan, we have been blessed with the League Battle Deck line of pre-constructed decks for the Pokemon trading card game. Over in Japan, they have more decks, but they don't necessarily have competitive level decks in the same way that League Battle decks are. Until right now. Over in Japan this weekend, they announced this new line of Battle Master decks featuring Charizard EX and Chien-Pao EX, and we're going to dig into these today. I know not many people watching this channel probably play with Japanese cards, but I do want to look at this package, see how they compare to our international League Battle decks, and talk about the potential ramifications of these existing and what this could mean for League Battle decks going forward. I'm Jed from InThirdPerson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about these new Battle Master decks. In the box, you will get one 60-card deck, one set of 64 deck sleeves. We're getting some damage counters and markers. We're getting a paper playmat, so don't get too excited on it going to be like one of the fabric. It's just paper. We're going to get a coin, V-Star marker, a how to play guide, and a Road to Battle Master player's guide. So some instructions for getting started out. Really nice touch, and we actually have a look at the Charizard and the Chien-Pao ones. I really like the paper playmat, and the sleeves look really nice. I like that coin as well. So nice little package here. And here's the Chien-Pao one, and I think this one looks great as well. And these are going to be releasing in Japan on May 17th, 2024, and they're about 3,000 yen, about $20 US. And I think the million-dollar question is, does this mean we're going to get Charizard and Chien-Pao as League Battle decks? If we do, it's not going to be related to this. Pokemon in Japan and Pokemon outside of Japan are essentially two different companies, and they don't translate these decks one-to-one. Oftentimes for the beginner level decks, they just throw those cards into the proper sets. Like Obsidian Flames is a terrible set for the most part because a lot of the starter decks just got their EXs dumped into Obsidian Flames. Sometimes we get some of those decks, like Greninja EX was one that was a starter deck in Japan that we also got as a starter deck internationally, but I don't even think those were the exact same deck lists either. So if we do get a Chien-Pao or a Charizard, it probably has nothing to do with these specifically. However, I don't think that precludes us from getting, in particular, Charizard. I do have a video coming out a little later about my predictions for it, and Charizard is very high on my list of what I think is coming next. But it's kind of cool to see Pokemon thinking, at least somewhere in the Pokemon company, that, hey, we should probably release a box version of the Charizard deck because Charizard is very strong. Some of the notable cards that we have seen in this package, and we didn't get a full deck list, they just kind of flashed the cards that are in there, some of them. So we know we are getting a new art of Charizard EX, and it's kind of a cool picture. I like it. We don't know how many Charizard EXs or anything like that. We're getting the 70 HP Charmander, and I know there are some people who like running some of the other Charizards or Charmanders in the game, but 70 HP Charmander is fine. And then we have the Charmeleon here, and not everybody likes this one. I think a lot are playing the Flare Veil one at this point, but this one's not bad either. Its second attack can knock out a Mimikyu, which the other one cannot. So there is value in still having this Charmeleon in there. Some of the other cards we are if this is a Bibarel variant, there is no Pidgeot in this list, which is unfortunate. But Bibarel is a solid draw support engine in the deck. We saw Tord win EUIC with Pidgeot and Bibarel in the deck. So if we're getting at least one of those, that's probably fine. But instead of a Pidgeot, we're getting the Arceus line, which is a little odd. Early on, we were seeing Arceus in Charizard builds to help for consistency, but since then, it's been pretty much Pidgeot or Bibarel and not Arceus. Some people are still playing it with the Arceus, and Arceus is still in and of itself a good card that you can use generally speaking, so nice to see it in here. And then we have Radiant Charizard as well. And yeah, with this coming out in May, rotation in Japan actually happens in January, so they've got about 8 months for these cards, for this deck to be standard legal in this form. After that, Bibarel is going to rotate out, Arceus is going to rotate out, Radiant Charizard is going to rotate out. So something to keep in mind when we talk about the fall decks coming out in November is that if we get a Charizard deck, it's not going to have Arceus, it's not going to have Radiant Charizard, it's not going to have Bibarel, it's not going to have Rotom, it's not going to have Lumineon. All of those cards rotate as part of the F block next year. So regardless if we get Charizard or not, if we do get Charizard, it's going to look very different from what we are getting here. Some trainer cards, solid lineup of cards. Of course, this isn't going to be everything in the deck, but Super Rod, Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, Artisan, and Iono are all great cards to have in a Charizard build. So I appreciate that. And like, without knowing all of the cards, I think this is a very strong core from which to build a fully meta Charizard deck. On the Chien-Pao side, we do have Chien-Pao EX with a different art as well. And then we've got ourselves the Baxcalibur line, of course. I didn't get a screenshot for Arctibax, but Arctibax is also in the deck for anyone that wants that middle evolution. Right now, most Chien-Pao players don't play the Arctibax, but the Arctibax can be good insurance against people playing the TM Devo. So if you get devolved back into the Frigibax, you've got some insurance. You just evolve back into Arctibax and could go back into Baxcalibur. We also have Radiant Greninja, which is an awesome card in Chien-Pao. Absolutely essential. One of the best. It is definitively the best Radiant Pokemon of all time, and just one of the best modern cards, period, for how useful it is in so many decks. So awesome to get it here. And then we get a Palkia line as well. Palkia, just a really strong attacker. It can be a good support Pokemon for Chien-Pao to load energy up to Greninja or to Chien-Pao. It can attack on its own. So nice includes here. A lot of competitive decks outside of Japan and even in Japan aren't really running Palkia, but I don't hate its inclusion here. It does fit in nicely. For the draw engine, we have the Beedrill, which is to be expected, and then some of the notable trainer cards include Superior Energy Retrieval, Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, and Irida. But keep in mind, if we do get a Chien-Pao list, which I think is even less likely than Charizard because we already have a EX battle deck for Chien-Pao, which I've got right here and I still haven't opened yet, but they never release multiple versions of the same feature Pokemon. So I think it's unlikely that we will get a Chien-Pao League battle deck. But when we do, it's not going to have Irida in it. It's not going to have Beedrill in it. It's not going to have Palkia or Greninja in it either. At which point, do you still want a Chien-Pao deck? I don't know. There are probably going to be some cards later this year that we'll see that could lead to what a future Chien-Pao deck is going to be going forward. But yeah, going into the fall, I don't think Chien-Pao is the play. But for those in Japan or those that want to buy this deck, I think this is a really good get. I think it's awesome that Japan is getting into the competitive scene in the sense of making more competitive pre-constructed decks. Most of the decks I've seen from Japan have been more on the casual side, but Charizard and Chien-Pao are awesome starting points for those in Japan. And if you want to buy it outside of Japan, it's available on May 17th for 3,000 yen, about 20 bucks US. And yeah, I think if you want to play with Japanese cards, of course, you can't use these at events outside of Japan. For the most part, you might want to check with your tournament organizers there, but it's a really nice place to start for either of those deck archetypes if you're looking to play in Japanese. And I don't know if there's much we can take from these existing in terms of what the next League Battle deck is going to look like. I think thinking it through, I think the odds of Chien-Pao being a League Battle deck are even more slim. I was thinking like in terms of this thing existing, but on top of that, we are losing Greninja and the Beedrill engine, and Chien-Pao could potentially look very different by the spring rotation in 2025. So Charizard seems way more likely of the two to get a League Battle deck, but I don't necessarily think it has anything to do with what we've seen from this Japanese Battle Master set. But what say you? Do you think these Japanese decks look awesome? Would you actually go out of your way to buy one of these? Are you keeping your fingers crossed for an international League Battle deck featuring Charizard? Let me know in the comments below. But for now, I got to get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at @InThirdPerson. You can find me on Twitch at @InThirdPerson, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, like I am right now. You can see the chat going crazy, and you can check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So Twitch fam, stick around. We're going to keep going, but for our YouTube friends, we're out of here. Later.